Hey guys, it's me, Dr. Ree, and in this video we are going to talk about histology, or the study of tissues. We're going to look at identifying and classifying basic tissues found in the body. There are four basic types of human tissues: epithelium, connective tissue, muscle tissue, and nervous tissue. Let's look at epithelial tissue first. Epithelium covers body surfaces, lines body cavities, and forms the majority of glands in the body. Characteristically, they are avascular, meaning no blood supply, and they function to protect, absorb, and secrete. Epithelial cells have two surfaces: a basal surface, or the basal pole, that's the bottom, and the apical surface, or the apical pole, and that's the top. On their basal surface, they have a specialized extracellular structure called the basement membrane, which anchors the epithelium to the underlying tissue. Now, epithelial tissue is classified by a number of layers they have, the shape of the cells, and the presence of any surface modifications, such as microvilli, which are non-motile cytoplasmic projections that increase surface area, stereocilia, long microvilli that are only found in the male reproductive tract, and cilia, long and highly mobile projections. We see this in the drawing, and we can see that difference between the microvilli and the cilia. Now let's look at specific examples of epithelium and how we identify them or categorize them. Simple squamous is a single layer of flat cells, simple meaning one layer and squamous meaning flat. This type of tissue is found in the lungs, lining of the heart, and there are two specific types of simple squamous tissues you should be aware of. Endothelium lines blood vessels, and mesothelium lines body cavities. Now, if we change the shape from flat to cubes, we get simple cuboidal tissue. These are commonly found within organs with lots of glands, such as the thyroid and the kidneys. If we then stretch that cube up, we get simple columnar epithelium. This is commonly found both with and without cilia. Ciliated varieties line small bronchi, uterine tubes, and some regions of the uterus, whereas non-ciliated lines most of the digestive tract, gallbladder, and some excretory ducts. This image is non-ciliated. It doesn't have long projections, but rather there's this small, wavy kind of fuzzy appearance that is characteristic on imaging of microvilli. This is an example from the gallbladder. Now, sometimes there is a single layer of cells that has differing heights, and we call this pseudostratified columnar epithelium. These are commonly ciliated and found in the trachea like this picture or other regions of the upper respiratory tract. There are some non-ciliated types, and those can be found in ducts of really large glands. Now, as usually within the pseudostratified columnar, we can find these things called goblet cells, which is that kind of like light fuzzy blue thing you see right there, and those can be mucus secreting. Now, stratified squamous, or stratified meaning many layers and squamous meaning flat, can be keratinized or non-keratinized. Keratin creates a tough armor-like surface, like what is needed for skin, whereas non-keratinized stratified squamous is found in linings that could experience abrasions like the esophagus. Stratified cuboidal is commonly found in sweat glands, and true stratified columnar epithelium are extremely rare. They can be seen in parts of the male urethra, but that's about it. Lastly, there is transitional epithelium, which resembles both stratified squamous and cuboidal. The cells on the apical surface are dome-like and sometimes called umbrella cells. Their shape is designed this way so they can stretch and permit distension. This type of epithelium lines the urinary tract, such as the ureters, the bladder, and part of the urethra. Next, let's look at connective tissues. They are all derived from embryonic tissue called mesenchyme and contain a mixture of cells, protein fibers, either collagen, elastic, or reticular fibers, and ground substance. There are three broad categories of mature connective tissues: connective tissue proper, supporting connective tissues, and fluid connective tissues. Connective tissue proper is the glue that holds things together and the stuffing that fills in spaces. There are two subcategories of connective tissue: loose connective tissue and dense connective tissue. Let's look at the types of loose connective tissue first. Areolar loose connective tissue consists of loose arrangements of all these protein fibers and a lot of fibroblasts. Adipose loose connective tissue has a very limited matrix and mostly consists of adipocytes, aka fat cells, that have a nucleus pushed all the way to the edge of glory. And the last loose connective tissue is reticular tissue, which has a network of reticular fibers in a loose ground substance with a few reticular cells. These type, reticular, is found in organs of the lymphatic system. Now, dense connective tissue can be regular, irregular, or elastic. Dense regular connective tissue is primarily parallel collagen fibers with a few elastic and a few fibroblasts. This is the type that make up tendons and ligaments. Dense regular connective tissue is the Marie Kondo to the kindergarten classroom that is dense irregular connective tissue. Dense irregular looks like a conglomeration, just basically a mess with mostly collagen fibers and some elastic fibers. This type usually makes up joint capsules. Finally, elastic connective tissue is a type of dense regular that is essentially all elastic fibers. These are stretchy and seen in large arteries and walls of the bronchial tubes, and they need to be able to deal with high pressure, and that's why they need to stretch so that they're able to recoil and move substances like blood and air respectively. After connective tissue proper, let's talk about supporting connective tissues, which are cartilage and bone. Cartilage is a specialized connective tissue whose function is to provide strong yet flexible support. Cartilage is avascular and has a dense irregular connective tissue covering called the perichondrium, except for fibrocartilage, which does not have this covering. Mature cartilage cells are known as chondrocytes, and they like to hide out in these little pockets called lacuna. There are 3 types of cartilage: hyaline, elastic, and fibrocartilage. Let's look at these. Hyaline is the most common type and can be identified by chondrocytes that are located in lacunae, and there's no visible fibers in the matrix. Hyaline cartilage is found in the nasal septum, costal cartilage, articular cartilage, larynx, and the C rings of the trachea. Now, fibrocartilage is similar to hyaline, except it has these thick bundles of collagen and lacks the perichondrium. It can be found in the pubic symphysis, intervertebral discs, and the knee menisci. Elastic cartilage has elastic fibers in its matrix, which makes this a very flexible cartilage. This type can be found in the epiglottis, lining of the auditory tube, and the external ear. The other supportive tissue type is bone. There are 2 types of bone tissue: compact or cortical bone, and spongy or trabecular bone. We will talk more about where these types are found next week. However, this week it is important to be able to recognize the histologic appearance of compact bone tissue and identify its general organization. The structural unit of compact bone is the osteon. The osteon is made up of sheets of calcified bone matrix, which are called lamellae. Found throughout the lamellae are osteocytes, mature bone cells, that hide in their little nests known as lacunae. Osteocytes are connected via caniculi, and running down through the center is the central canal, which carries blood vessels and nerves. You can see here kind of my little sketch of it. So again, we have an osteon, which in the middle has the central canal, and these layers that are known as the lamellae. Then we can draw these little osteocytes within their lacuna and how they are connected through caniculi. The last type of connective tissue is fluid connective tissue. Blood is the best example of this. It is a free-moving cells throughout this interstitial fluid, and we will discuss more about blood and the components of blood later this semester. Let's talk now about another category of tissue known as muscle tissue. There are 3 types of muscle tissue: skeletal, cardiac, and smooth. Skeletal muscle has striated fibers with multiple nuclei. The striations are because of the functional units called sarcomeres, which we'll discuss more in the muscle labs. These muscles are voluntary and are usually attached to the skeletal system. Now, smooth muscle fibers are non-striated and are spindle-shaped with only 1 nucleus. Their contractions are involuntary, and this type can be found covering the walls of internal organs, such as the stomach and all the other organs of the digestive tract. Lastly, cardiac muscle is striated and uninucleated, meaning 1 nucleus. Cardiac cells are joined together via intercalated discs. This allows for the muscle fibers to contract as 1 unit. The contractions are involuntary. I don't think you think about making your heart beat, and they're found within the walls of the heart. Our last tissue type to discuss is nerve tissue, which is my personal favorite and a tissue I will discuss more when we get to the nervous system. For now, know that there are 2 types of cells in nervous tissue: neurons, the main functional cells, and glial cells, which are the support cells. There are many parts to the neuron, which we will cover in coming labs. This video is for educational purposes only, and the information provided is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease. If you have any questions, please contact me via email, come to Open Lab Thursdays 5 to 8 p.m., or my office hours Wednesdays and Thursdays 2 to 4 p.m.